Alright, here we are, and we're about to tie my good friend Alec Gerbec's resting caddis. This is a kind of a complicated little pattern. It took me 12 or 13 of them to get dialed in with Alec's help, but I think we got it, and I have to admit it's a sort of a fun little fly. I call it Alec's McGinty, and he loves that part, but in reality, this is a pretty slick little fly. Really nice, low-floating, flat water caddis pattern, and it's got a couple little tricks on it, so that makes it fun. So we're gonna get started. What I've got here in the vise is a Tiemco 2487. I'm tying a 14 today, and I'm going to use some 14-aught Veevus just in brown. I'm going to tie a tan one. So I'm going to take and start my thread, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to start my thread about 2/3 of the way forward, and I'm going to leave a long tag end. We're going to use that tag as a rib as we get a little further along, so I want to wrap back over that down around the bend of the hook a bit, and then I'll bump my thread just so it doesn't slide. And I'm going to take a little bit of tan superfine dubbing for the body here, and again you can tie this in whatever color you like. And I'm going to put a noodle of this on the thread. I'm going to start off pretty thin and work up a little thicker. Even on a 14, it doesn't take as much as you need. We're not doing the entire hook shank with this, so I want to use that bare thread between the dubbing and the hook to work back and get my first turn of dubbing to come around back here right at the bend and start with a nice skinny little body. One strand there on the hook point. I'll get that with the rib. And I'm going to build a little bit of a tapered body as I come forward. And I like to catch the hook point like that so it jumbles up that dubbing just a little bit, just to keep me humble. And now that that's accomplished, I'll just go back to doing it right. So we've got a little tapered body there, nothing fancy. Now, Alec likes to counter wrap this thread rib, so I'm just going to reverse wrap this, just evenly spaced. And the amount of spacing is sort of up to you. You know, I noticed sort of depends on my mood, but you can see over that tan dubbing, that brown thread rib makes a nice little bit of segmentation there. I'll tie that off with a few turns and then clip that off out of there. And for the underwing on this fly, we're going to use tan CDC. And what I've done here, my CDC feathers are a little scraggly, so I've got 2 of them, and you can see I've already tied one. I did one warm up, so I've stripped off one side. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take the feather like so and grab a clump and peel it off, and then bundle it up into a nice neat little bunch. And you can see there's some various lengths there. I'm not worried about that just yet. So I'm going to make a thread base up to the hook eye and back again to the front edge of the body, and then I'll tie that CDC in right on top, just nice and firm. And I can come in at an angle here and trim these butt ends out and anchor those down. Now, to even this up a bit, you can see we've got some sort of extra long ones. I don't want to just come in and cut them off flush so they're all square. What I'm going to do is just hold them just beyond the bend and kind of break them off with my thumbnail. So I've still got some randomness to that. I don't want them cut square. That actually came out pretty nice, and we've got, I can see on my screen, I've got one tiny strand of superfine dubbing back here, and now that I've removed that, this fly will actually catch a fish. If I had left that there, they would all reject that. So the overwing on this fly, and sort of the tricky part, is made from a mallard flank feather, and this one is dyed tan. You could use dyed wood duck also, or olive or gray, or whatever color you need to match your local caddis. And you know, I watched Alec's video of this several times and didn't soak the feather like he said, and you know, I got it right exactly one time, and it was the first time, which falsely built my confidence. And then after I screwed up a bunch of them, I talked to Alec, and he said, yeah, soak those feathers, it'll make a big difference. So what you want to do to prep these is I want to strip the fibers off the bottom like so, And then I want to create a separation point between the tip and the butt along that center stem and sort of draw those fibers back like that. And that's going to become the base of our wing. I've got some here that I've pre-soaked, so I'm going to pull one of those out of here, and I'm just going to dab it on a paper towel to make it not quite so wet. But there we are with the wetted version. I'm going to dry that just a bit more, and I'm going to create that separation point. Sometimes they get a little messed up when you put them in the water. Strip a few of these fibers off the base. I don't want too many of them there. So I've got something that looks about like that. Now the trick to tying this in, and this is the part that I sort of fought with, when you first prep this feather, I'm going to hold it sideways so you can see it. When you first prep this feather, you want to try to keep everything flat and in line. You don't want to pinch it or roll it. So I want to kind of slide that down here on the screen. Slide that in my fingertips so I've got it prepped out like that. And then I'm going to lay that right on top of the hook, and I want to hold on to the hook as I come up and around. And I want to keep that all centered up on top. Make sure that center quill is right on top of the hook, like so there. And I'll get that anchored in with 3 or 4 turns. Then you want to separate out that center stem and lift that up and get a couple more turns in there over just those fibers to sort of anchor everything down. And I'll trim that center stem out, and then I'm going to come in with the very tips of my scissors here and trim those remaining fibers out. Made that look a lot harder than it needed to be, but we got there. Alright, now to Alec's credit, he just continues on and ties the fly, and he doesn't split the wing until after he's whip finished. But I'm going to go ahead and do it now, just in case I screw it up. But what we want to do here is we're going to take up here above our reversed section. I'm going to take a few fibers off one side. Kind of turn this so you can see. Let's see, this way. I'm going to do the far side first. And what I want to do, and I've got to do it where I can see it, is I'm going to really think of pulling the main stem away from these fibers. So you can see I've got some of these fibers set aside. I'm going to use that as a handle, and I'm going to pull the main stem, and as I start to feed down here, that will separate. And you can see you can even grab the base of the feather and start to skin it, like so. Kind of get an idea of what we've done there. Then I'm going to do the same thing on my near side here. Separate out a few fibers. And again, I kind of found it's helpful to think of pulling the main stem rather than pulling that little piece. And you don't have to go all the way down to the thread base to get them separated, but you can kind of see the shape of the wings that's given us, which is pretty cool, pretty realistic. And we'll lift this center quill up and trim that out. And then just trim the tips off here of these little handles. And then you can sort of shape your wings back into place. And you do want them to lay a little spent. That far one's a little banged up. I'm going to trim one of those fibers out. Get rid of that one single. I'll use my handy dandy tweezers right here to do that. That should help. And just sort of preen things into shape like so. So there's our Wally wing. Pretty crafty way to make a wing, and it's always something I've seen, and I have to admit this is the first time I've ever done it. So there we are. So now I'm going to take, I've got a dark barred ginger sort of variant saddle feather here. It's really a pretty feather. And I've sized this to the hook. I'm going to tie this in at the base of those wings. You could use brown here, of course. You could use dun. Again, match it to what you've got. And I'm going to take just another small pinch of dubbing here. Now this is where I vary from Alec's pattern. Alec just wraps the hackle over that thread base, but I've got enough taper there. You can see my thread just slid a bit. Enough taper there that I feel like I want the dubbing underneath it to just help seat that hackle. Alec can seem to do it on the bare thread, but he's a lot better at this one than I am, so I'll give him that. I'm going to make a little concession, make this a little easier on myself. And I'm going to build a little thorax there, and I'm going to end with my bare thread just behind the hook eye. And then I'll come in and start to wrap my hackle. And I want to wrap this hackle particularly over the dubbing. I'm going to spread these wraps out just a little bit so they're, I don't know if palmered is going to be the word because they're just a little tiny bit spaced out, but not quite butted together like they'd be on a conventional hackle collar. I'll tie that feather off and trim the stub end out, and then whip finish. And I'm going to come in and trim that thread out. I think I'm looking pretty good there. I've got a couple little crazies here. We'll get rid of those as well. Again, much better. The fly would have, where'd that guy come from? Alright, so we're looking better now. Now one thing Alec does is trims the hackle on the bottom, which I think is a good idea. What that's going to do is make this fly sit a little bit lower and let the butt end, let the curved hook work to your advantage and let the butt end hang below the hook. So I'm going to come in and pull that hackle down and just trim it off flush from the bottom. You can always turn your vise a bit and kind of clean that up, whatever's easiest for you to do. And there we've got a resting caddis from Alec Gerbec. Alec is our Rocky Mountain Umpqua rep, and he and I have become pretty good friends over the last few years since he started this job, and he's a phenomenal tyer. He's got quite the resume of places that he's guided, you know, including Alaska and the Seychelles, and starting off down in Durango. So, you know, when he's got a secret little pattern like this, I usually listen to him. Not always. I love to give him crap. He's a super sweet guy, and you know, it's easy to beat on him a little bit. So I'll give him his due where credit is due for sure. Cool little pattern. Nice low floater, surprisingly easy to see too. So twist a few resting caddis up, tie them in a few different colors. I think you'll have fun with it. It was a nice little challenge for me today. And now I'm going to go drink. So I hope you enjoyed that. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next issue. I'm Charlie Craven for Fly Fisherman Magazine.